Welcome back to Midco Sports tonight. Well, we just revealed our panel's choices for the top 5 men's and women's basketball players in the Summit League. And now let's dive a little deeper into these picks. For that, our expert panel is in studio. Tom Nieman, Jay Elsen right here in Sioux Falls. And up in West Fargo, we have Brian Shawn. So we're going to start with B. Shawn. And you see Paul Miller. You've seen him play more than anyone else on this panel, B. Shawn. He comes in at number 3 on the list. Is that too high? Is it too low? Or is that the right spot for him?
I think that's probably right where he should be. And again, this is a guy that's played mostly two-guard his entire career, and now in his senior year with the loss of Kai Cabellas, he's had to play a lot of points. He's leading the team in points, in rebounds, in assists. He's doing a little bit of everything. He had 30 points, which is 3 short of a career high at North Dakota, in front of a really hostile environment, and has really picked up shooting the basketball the last couple of weeks. Missed just 1 shot against Valley City State last night, 12 of 16 from the floor against North Dakota Saturday. So I really believe he's starting to come into his own here as they get towards the latter part of the non-conference season.
Great start. Well, coming in right above Paul Miller at number 2 on the list, Matt Mooney. And Jay, I guess we could say we've seen Matt Mooney play a lot, but what makes him so good?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that make Matt Mooney a very good player. Work ethic being right at the top of that list. I don't think you'll find a guy, or you'd be hard-pressed to find a guy who's willing to put in the amount of time that Matt Mooney has throughout his career at South Dakota. And Matt is a very high-volume scorer. Sometimes he gets a bit streaky, but what I like most about this guy right here is the ice water that he has in his veins. He's got that kind of killer instinct. I want the ball in my hands at the end of the game, and how many times last year and this year already have we seen him come up big in big moments for the Coyotes? He is just he's a dead-on shooter. When he gets hot, they don't miss. And so that's what makes him such a special guy in my mind. Almost a mentality thing more than anything else.
Well, you touch on the work ethic, and last year we did a feature on him for Coyote Corner, and talking to Craig Smith, he said even if there's something that just doesn't feel right about his jump shot or doesn't feel right about maybe a 15-foot jumper, in the gym working on it until it's fixed. So you can definitely tell with that one. But our number 1 spot was Mike Daum. And Tom, you think Mike Daum's a really good player, but it wasn't a slam dunk number 1 for you, which might surprise some people.
It wasn't. I mean, yeah, he's pretty good, but Matt Mooney's pretty good. John Contra's really good. But Mike Daum, yes, he's got ways to score that just baffle you sometimes. He's got that gangly 3-point shot where he can go out and shoot it from about anywhere, and then he can take it to the hoop, and he powered it inside last night against North Dakota, and that was pretty impressive. Blocking some shots this year, 13 blocks in 13 games. That's a huge number for Mike Daum because they're harping on him defensively. He's picked up his defense this year, still averaging 20 points a game, shooting it okay. His shooting percentages are down a little bit early in this season, but he's still 20.7 rebounds a game. And again, he can go inside with that 6'9" frame, can shoot the 3 as good as anybody in the conference from deep range. He's got a little more scoring support this year from the Jacks, so I don't know if we're going to see him get to 25 points a game like he was last year, but I think by this margin, he might be the best player in the league. But Mooney is up there. John Contra, you look at his numbers from Fort Wayne, and he's the other guy I had right behind Mike Daum.
Well, speaking of Contra and Mike Daum as well, we're going to talk about them because John Contra, Bryson Scott, both on the same team, Fort Wayne. Is it tough for elite players like that to play on the same team together? B-Shawn, what do you think?
You know, I don't, and the reason I would look at Concha, and I kind of agree with Tom, he could very well be on top of this list or right below Mike Daum, because when you talk to coaches around the league, there isn't a guy that impacts the game in more ways than Concha. And yeah, the stats maybe aren't as eye-popping, the 14.5 points, 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, but what he does defensively, the way he keeps the ball alive, keeps possessions alive, the way he defends, that's what makes him such a special player in my opinion. And this guy obviously has been lighting it up. 44% from the field, 21 points a game already this season. Has had a couple of really explosive performances. The 3-point shot not as hot so far for Scott, but he's a volume scorer, a lot like Mooney is. When he gets hot, a very dangerous guy to defend because of his ability to not only shoot the ball but go inside.
Well, so many great players throughout the Summit League. It was hard to narrow it down to 5, but you guys did somehow. But are there any honorable mentions that maybe could have made the list by a slim margin, give or take? Jay, what do you think?
I think Joe Rozga, Daniel Amigo from Denver certainly have to be in consideration here. Rozga is a guy that, you know, we saw him burst on the scene as a freshman, and he's only gotten better. He was even more consistent last year. And then Daniel Amigo, once he got into a system like he did with Rodney Billups last year, you saw what that guy could do on both ends of the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, a good scorer on the inside. Not necessarily a huge range to him, but very effective on the post for the Pioneers. And then obviously on the glass, he can be a real beast as well. So those are two guys right off the top that come to mind for me.
Yeah,
Right.
Amigo's got a little bit of Mike Dom. He can shoot the three. He can go inside a little bit. He's 6'8", and Rosga's just like smarter than everybody else. He's one of those players that sees things before other players see it. One other guy who's playing well in the preseason at Western Illinois is Brandon Gilbeck, who's almost a 7-footer, leads the league in block shots right now, 9 rebounds a game. So those are 3 other guys that we didn't mention in our top 5 list. But and I'm going to go back to Conchar one more time. 9 rebounds, leads the league. He also leads the league in steals right now, and he's almost 4 assists per game. So him and Scott working together, that's a really good combination that we'll get to see when Fort Wayne comes to Fargo and comes to Vermilion and comes to Brookings.
And Conchar is a 59% career shooter.
Yeah.
And he's 47% from 3. I mean, you're talking about a guy who could score at all 3 levels and do it among the best in the league. I mean, he's a absolute animal.
He's a beast. He's crazy. He's always moving. He never stops going, and that's why he's a great rebounder.
And I feel like we don't hear about him a ton just because of the distance Fort Wayne over here, but he fills up the stat sheet just about every night. Well, let's move on to the women's top 5. And Emily Clemens was tabbed the preseason player of the year, but we have Maci Miller at number 1 on the list. Tom, what do you think about that?
I think this is kind of a toss-up, but they're 2 different players in a way. Maci is really the player that makes Southwest State go. Clemens has a lot of support on that team. Their starting 5 at Western Illinois can all score. Maci's probably a little better shooter. Clemens is averaging 8.5 assists right now, which is just crazy. And Western Illinois has played some games, some teams in the early season that they have just blown off the floor from the lower levels. But you talk about Miller, and then Jay, you get to Emily Clemens here, and they're similar, but Clemens is a little quicker, a little better at distributing the basketball.
She's great floor vision. I mean, prototypical point guard in that way. She can score just under 16 points per game, but that 8.5 assists per game is 3rd in Division I right now. She actually ranks 2nd in total assists on the season. That's how good she is at distributing the basketball. And oh, by the way, she plays pretty good defense too. Just under 4 steals per game. That's 6th in NCAA basketball.
And this girl is 5 feet 4 inches tall. But Tom, you talked about SDSU having a lot of depth with Miller. Let's talk about Western Illinois. They have pretty much everyone back from last year, but that includes Emily Clemens and Taylor Higginbotham. So Shawn, what makes those 2 players so special and the entire Western Illinois team so dangerous?
Well, their style of play is so unique compared to everybody else. I mean, they just get up and down the floor, the way they pressure the basketball. People don't realize this. Up until last year, J.D. Gravina in his coaching career had never played zone before, didn't believe it. And then he actually went to another school in Drake and saw them play zone and said, we have a similar type team, let's try it. It's totally worked out for Western Illinois. But they have the right personnel. They have 5 kids on the floor at one time that can shoot the 3. And that makes such a difference, and it's so hard to defend that group, that even if you go on some of these mini runs with their tempo and the way they push the ball, they're just tough to keep up with for an entire 40-minute game. And that's why I think it makes them so unique. They're a matchup nightmare because you just don't see anybody like them very often throughout the country, and especially in the league.
They are tough, just a completely different style of play. I feel like even last year they kind of caught some teams off guard because their style was so different. But let's touch on the number 4 and number 5 players on our list. That's Allison Arns and Maddie Giebert from South Dakota State. But Jay, Allison is not off to maybe the scoring prowess that she had last year, but she's still doing so much for USD.
Doesn't need to have that scoring volume that she did last year because the Coyotes have more players to work with, and that's certainly a good thing because I think last year at the end of the year we saw her run out of gas a little bit. 11.5 points per game so far, just under 5 rebounds. She's really good at getting to the free throw line, Kelly, as you well know. Never afraid to attack the basket going against those bigger players on the inside. Doesn't always make the basket, but she gets to the free throw line a ton, and she's very, very good at hitting those free throws. Hit 157 of them last year, 3rd all time at USD, so she's effective that way. And then Madison Giebert, I'm telling you, if I need one shot, she's not shooting the 3 as well as we're accustomed to seeing her, Tom, so far this season, but she's got 201 for her career and a 40% clip. So if I need one shot, I'm still going to Madison Giebert.
Yeah, she's been doing a lot. Obviously known for her scoring, but Tom, she's been stepping up other areas of her game. Aaron Johnson said he wants her to rebound better, and their guards are rebounding well.
Yeah, she's doing all of that. Her defense is really good this year. She's had a couple of games against Louisville and Oklahoma, those Power Fives that came in, and she was really good defensively against some of those fast guards from the Big 12 and those kind of teams. But yeah, her shooting is going to come on. She's around a 40% three-point shooter, down a little bit right now. But yeah, Giebert definitely deserves to be in the top 5.
Yeah, she
down,
is
but
fun to
still
watch.
14 points per game.
Yeah.
Down,
So,
but 14.
yeah.
I wish I could have done that. But Bichon, Jess Walter, and Maria Martianez both got some votes. They didn't make the list. So kind of talk about Walter and why she is such an elite player.
Well, I think Walter, because she was sitting out last year due to transfer rules, I think maybe kind of flew under the radar. We're so used to seeing Michaela Shawn, Daprich, and all those players in Omaha take a majority of those shots and hit those big shots. But here's a kid that is coming after sitting a year out and has really taken over as the go-to player right away for Omaha. And they've really needed her with the players they've lost, with the Daprich sisters, with Shaw, Marissa Preston left the team. They needed someone to be their leading scorer. She's shooting at a high clip. She can go inside and outside. She's comfortable in Brittany Lang's system. And they're going to be relying on her quite a bit here when they get into conference play. And I think once we get towards the end of the season, she could certainly work herself into being a first-team All-Summit League selection.
Yeah, she's doing well, and I love Omaha's camera angles, by the way. But
and Walter, she's a good compliment. Ellie Brecht, who's from Sioux
Yes.
Falls, leads the Summit League. She's made more threes than anybody else in the Summit League right now, so that's pretty good 1-2 combination at the guard for Omaha right now.
And then really quick, Tom, let's talk about Martianez out of Oral Roberts. She is tough playing that post player position, but she can move, she can shoot it from the outside.
Yeah, good free throw shooter, gets to the line a little bit, but averaging over 8 rebounds a game to go along with 11 points a game. Leads her team in assists right now, more than 3 assists per game. So she plays more minutes, does everything for Oral Roberts right now. And they had Vicky McIntyre, remember her? 6'8" a couple of years ago, led the league in block shots. Martiana is not that big of a player or that much of an impact player defensively, but at the offensive end, she does everything right now for Oral Roberts, and they kind of picked in the middle of the pack. We'll see what they do once Summit League season starts.
All right, well, great discussion, guys. Definitely looking forward to talking more Summit League hoops in the future.
December 30th, we get going with the Summit League season.
Getting close.
All right, it's going to be here before we know it. All right, coming up next, we had a lot of live action here on Midco SN last night, and we'll recap all of it with some highlights. Stay right here.